Me too. Me too. Okay, hello everybody. We are back. Last week we began some of the explanations. The first part of the Tanya is asking a bunch of questions. Let's just recap the whole focus of the Tanya. It's focused on a pasuk, a verse in the Torah, in portion of Nitzavim that says, "Karev elecha davar ma'id." To observe Torah and mitzvahs is very doable. It says it's very close to you, meaning it is doable, and doable in your heart, in your feelings, in your seichel, in your intellect, and your action. Machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh. Question is, how is it doable? It's very difficult. And then he continued by showing us that there are three categories of a Jew: a tzaddik, a rasha, and a Banany. Rasha and Tsaddick are both subdivided into rasha v'toivloi, tzaddik v'toivloi, rasha v'raloi, tzaddik v'raloi, meaning the imperfect tzaddik, and the imperfect rasha, meaning a rasha who is not complete in his wickedness, and a Banany. And he goes on from showing different references and different proofs in the Talmud that a Banany does not have a single sin. And of course, a tzaddik doesn't have any sins. If so, what is the difference between a tzaddik and a Bendy? So evidently, the idea is not just in what they do in their observance or lack of sinning, but something deeper than that. So what does it mean, something deeper than that? There's the person, do good, you're a tzaddik, do bad, you're a rasha. So what exactly is the Banany? Why is he not within the same category of a tzaddik? Because all he's doing is good. So he starts saying something which is found in Kabbalah, is brought down from the Arizal, from his main student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, that basically, what is the composition of a Jew? And he's saying that a Jew is composed of two souls. And it does not mean that he has one person, one soul, and two inclinations to do good or to do bad. He is completely comprised of two complete souls. Each soul is equipped with intellectual and emotional capabilities and modes of expression. Both the godly soul has all of these, and the animal soul has all of these. What is the difference between the two? The godly soul's whole focus, ambition, and desire is to connect and to fulfill and to be an expression and an extension of what godliness wants. The animal soul wants self. The animal wants pleasure, self-preservation, eating, sleeping, hunger, all of the basic necessities of a human being, in which he is similar to an animal, because an animal has all of these basic necessities also. And therefore, this soul is called the Nefesh HaBahamis, the animal soul, because this soul wants what any animal wants. Nothing spiritual about it. By its very nature, it does not gravitate to anything spiritual. It only gravitates to self. So a Jew is comprised of these two different souls that strive for completely different things in life. And from this comes out the whole battle in the person. So eventually he's going to explain this. What is the difference between a tzaddik and a Banany? A tzaddik basically reworked the human side of him, so to speak, that all that it desires, the entire focus of the person is taken over by the godly soul. And what does he as a human being want? Only what the godly soul wants. That is a tzaddik. A Roshe acts on what his animal soul wants. Naturally, his being is what an animal soul wants and what an animal wants, self. And his actions at times are also that way, even if it's a sin. But even permissible things, if it is done for self-gratification without any thought that he is here to serve God, is also in a sense sinful, because his actions are obscuring the fact and denying the fact that he's only here to do what God wants and to become an extension of what God wants. A Banany, which is for whom the Tanya was written, is the person that, yes, he is a human being that understands the pleasures of life. It has an attraction for him. However, he controls his desires and these attractions, even though he wants them, because he realizes this is going against God. And as he'll say later in Tanya, there's no way that he wants to sever his connection to God for even a moment. And the moment he does a sin, he is severing, at times only temporarily, his connection to God. And the godly soul never wants to be connected from God in any way whatsoever, even temporarily. And when the godly soul is able to explain and to overpower the animal soul, and it realizes that doing any sin is really severing him from God, and every Jew is ready to die not to be severed from God. In other words, if somebody comes to a Jew and says, bow down to a cross, or I will kill you, a Jew by nature will say, kill me, because he realizes he's severing himself from God with that act, even if only temporarily, even if he doesn't really mean it sincerely. If a Jew would realize that every action of his, every sin of his, or every action of his that he's doing for selfish reasons, for physical reasons, is in truth severing him from God, he would not do it. With such meditation and realization, one is able to be a Banany. So what is the idea of the difference between a Banany and between a Banany and a Tsaddick and a Roshe? The Tsaddick, his godly soul takes over his whole being. His godly soul, in a sense, controls, and not just it controls his human being is now directed now only to godliness. What does he as a human being desire? Only what his godly soul desires, and that is a Tsaddick. A Rosh, of course, has the desires of his animal soul, and he actually gives in to those desires, whether it's a sin or just self-enjoyment. A Banany does not give in to the desires, but he is still a human being that he can understand that it's pleasurable. He feels the pleasure in these physical things, even though he doesn't do it. A Banany can elevate himself to a very high level that many of the physical pleasures he does abhor, similar to a Tsaddick, but he still has many of the pleasures, and his hatred for this physicality within is not really very strong, because he knows that it's still a pleasure. So he did not transform his human side into being a godly side. It is this transformation of the human side of him into a godly being that is the difference between a Tsaddick and a Banany, and which is the constant struggle of the life of a Banany and the life of a Jew. As he's going to say later, that a Banany should not become depressed and despondent. What good is my serving God if I'm always capable of sinning, even if I can control it? But the fact that I have such a desire shows that I'm such a lowly being that I understand that doing something that God hates could be pleasurable, and it's not disgusting by me. As we discussed last time, if somebody's loves somebody very much and the person that you love finds something disgusting, to you it will be disgusting also. If somebody can be a dog lover, but if your wife has an allergy to dogs and it literally makes her sick, you will find the dog as something abhorrent because it's going to harm the one that you love. So the same way, a tzaddik finds every physical thing, certainly every sin, disgusting because it goes against his love. And this is what a Banany strives for, to transform his being. Some Bananim will be able to elevate themselves, that a big portion of them will be similar to Tzaddikim, and some will never succeed. But yet this is what their purpose is. And this battle is a fantastic pleasure to God, just like the Tsaddick's constantly doing only what God wants, and the Bendy also does only what God wants, but the struggle that he has is also very, very special. So let's start going in again. There's some of the text we'll review, and then we'll quickly, and then we'll go on to some very new concepts. But the explanation of the matter, meaning what is the difference between a tzaddik and a Bendy? If both of them serve God in every way and abstain from every sin, based on what Rabbi Chaim Vital, who was a main student of the Arizal, a great Kabbalist of the 15th century, and he explained the words of the Arizal B'Shar HaKdusha in a book, in a sefer called Shar HaKdusha, the Gateway to Holiness, and also in another book called Eitz Chaim. And what does he say there? The L'chol Ish Yisrael, every single Jew, Echad Tzaddik ve'Echad Roshe, whether he is a Tzaddik or a Roshe, and certainly if he's a Banany, yesh shtei neshamayos, there are two souls, two complete different personas. What does he base this on? Diksiv, there's a verse that says, uneshamayos ani osisi, I made souls, and he's speaking over there about one individual, one human being, and God says, in this one human being, I made two different souls, plural. Let me go down a little bit on the page. It didn't go. Now he's going to explain these two souls. What is he going to explain about them? First of all, what is the source of the soul? And what is the yearning? What is the desire of each soul? Where does it come from? And what does it want? And they're radically different. So in other words, it's not one soul from God, and one is a tzaddik, one's a Roshe, but there are two different types of souls from different sources within godliness. As we said before, everything has to come from godliness. There's no other force except from a force that God made or that comes from godliness. Everything is from godliness. Before God made the world, there was no other existence other than godliness. God then went and contracted and limited himself to a degree that there can be something that can be perceived on higher spiritual levels is perceived in one way. On our lowly world is conceived in a very coarse physical way that I can perceive it as not representing godliness. So, but all of these energies and all of these creations come from God, except in one level, or in really a great part of this world, it's what we call klippa and sitra achra. Klippa literally means a peel or a husk, because just like a peel or a husk conceals the fruit that is in it, the same way this energy of God is made to conceal the truth that is completely godliness. Take away God, there's nothing there. It's also called sitra achra, the other side, because it means there is a force from godliness that is created to oppose godliness officially, meaning it is not the side of holiness, it is the side that opposes holiness. Sitra is Aramaic for side, achara is other. So again, nefesh achas, one soul, the animal soul. Mitzad, its source is, it comes from, the source of it is klipa visitra achra, a source that its intention is to conceal and hide godliness. That's the first thing that it tells me about this soul. It doesn't come from an elevated level of godliness, which is here to express godliness and where godliness can be felt and revealed, but rather it comes from a part of godliness where godliness is concealed. Next, he's going to say, where does this soul reside in the person? What part of the person is housing this soul? So he says it resides in the blood of the person. And let's look at the words, vihi and it, this animal soul, this lower level of soul that represents self and makes a person be interested just in self, mislabeshes, it is clothed, it is housed, the interface is bedam ha'odam, in the blood of the person. And the function of this soul is, first of all, a hachyis haguf. It gives life to the body. The body is a piece of flesh. That's number one. In the flesh, we have two lives, in a sense. One life is that it exists. That is a life. Something is giving it a soul, so to speak, that it should exist. Something is creating it from nothing into an entity. It exists. But then the body has another form of life that gives it life, movement, breathing, eating, thinking, feeling, loving, learning. All of this is a life. And where is this life housed? In the animal soul, in the blood of the person. And he brings a verse from the Torah that shows this, ukidiksiv, as it is written in the Torah, ki nefesh habosar, the soul of the flesh, bedam he, is centered in the blood. Now, why in the blood? What is special about blood that it should be the place that houses the animal soul? The godly soul, he says, is not housed in the physical body itself. There's no interface for the godly soul in the animal, in the physical body, because the godly soul is too spiritual to interface directly with the physical body. We'll explain later how it does interface. The animal soul, which is also very spiritual, it has to interface with the physical body. The physical body is physical. How could something spiritual, the spiritual soul of the animal soul, which is spiritual, how does it interface with the physical body? So it says the most spiritual part of the body is the heat, the warmth of the body, which is in the blood. The blood is the warmth of the body, and this courses through the entire body and brings warmth to the whole body. Why is warmth something more spiritual than the physicality of the body? We see in the characteristic of warmth something that we see is different than the physical characteristic of anything. Two physical characteristics, two physical bodies cannot be in the same place. They cannot blend. One physical thing automatically pushes away another physical thing. Each one is physical. Each one controls its space and doesn't allow for other space. That is the symbol of something truly physical. I am here, nothing else takes my place. There's something which is in the body which is physical, but yet it's quite spiritual, and that is the heat, the warmth of the blood. Something warm is physical. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can experience it, and yet this warmth can penetrate something else physical. Something warm can go through metal, something warm can go through wood. If you put something warm inside you and you enclose it in a metal oven, in wood, in glass, the heat is going to transfer through the glass and come to the outside. How is this possible? Two physical things cannot occupy the same place because heat, it is something physical, yet it is the most spiritual element of the physical, and therefore it can actually permeate the physicality. So this most spiritual area of the physical body is the area that can house the spiritual animal soul. And that is why the spiritual animal soul, even though it's a very lowly soul, it's spiritual. But how can it interface with the body? Through the warmth, through the blood. Okay, so he told us two things. He told us what is the source of the animal soul. It is a lower level of godliness that is made to conceal godliness, called klippa or sidra achra. Where is the interface? Where is it housed in the body? It is housed in the blood. Now, of course, what is the seat of blood, so to speak? What causes the blood to course throughout the entire body, to flow throughout the entire body and give life to the entire body? It is the heart. The heart is basically a pump that each time that it pulsates, it squeezes the blood, that the blood should arrive at every single organ, and that is what gives life to every single organ. If the blood stops working, if the blood stops flowing from the heart to the rest of the body, that is what's called a heart attack, and the organs die. If there's a stroke, God forbid, and the blood does not reach the brain, the blood is stopped literally from going into the brain, from a blockage or a clot or anything else. There's a stroke, and again, the life force is not going to go to the organs, and the organs are going to die. So that is what he says, ki nefesh habosor b'damhi, that the soul of the flesh is in the blood. Okay. Now he's going to go in. So he told us, we explained two things: the source of the soul, number one; number two, where it is housed. Now he's going to say another thing. What basically does this soul do? What does this godly soul, this animal soul, which of course comes from God, nothing can not come from God, but is the animal soul, what does it do? So he's going to say that basically the midos rois, the inclination, the characteristics of the human being, the natural characteristics of a human being is, as we said, for self. It is like an animal. It is selfish. It wants what is good for itself. It does not focus normally on somebody else. It focuses just on self. Where does it come from? Now, a completely new concept. According to the Chazal, to the ancient rabbis, even according to Maimonides, there are four elements that comprise everything. Now, of course, we know from chemistry, from science, that there are many, many different elements. He's speaking over here about four more fundamental elements that in their composition and in their mixing of these elements, everything is going to be created. Everything in this physical world is created from these four elements. And these four elements exist also in a spiritual realm. Everything comes from these four elements in a spiritual sense. The physical elements have a spiritual counterpart. And since we're speaking over here about an animal soul that its basic intention is evil or self, which is also synonymous with evil, its basic intention and creation is to hinder godliness, to conceal godliness, which is bad. So it's going to come from a soul that contains these four elements. Everything contains these four elements, but these four elements in the animal soul, its intention is bad. Its composition is, so to speak, bad. Where do we see that its composition is bad? Because the result of it is bad. So again, let's just say these words over. Umimena, from it, from this animal soul, bo'is comes kol hamidos reis, all of the evil characteristics, the evil nature of a person. How does a soul have four elements? So he says there are spiritual elements, but in the animal soul, may arba yesoidos roim shaba, from the four evil elements that comprise the animal soul. Next week, we're going to go into the idea of what are the bad characteristics that come from these elements and how is each characteristic based on the element. That's what we're going to go into next week. Oh, any questions? There should be tons of questions, but most of them will be explained as we continue, and he really goes into what these ideas are. But any other questions, we will gladly entertain. Maybe not so gladly answer.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. So I understand that. So nefesh, this is the animal soul, right? And
No.
neshama is the godly soul. No.
Nefesh means a soul.
Okay.
Now, nefesh ha'elokit means a godly soul. Nefesh habahamit means the animal soul, meaning the animal that basically functions that we should be as an animal to do whatever we want, to bring pleasure, to bring life, self-preservation. It doesn't naturally mean bad. And I know there's many animals that are fantastic. I trade them for a person in a second. So, but he doesn't mean animal to mean bad. Animal means it wants the same things that an animal wants. A dog can be the most loving creature in the world, which is wonderful, but this is what he is. He is doing what he is as an animal. So a nefesh habahamis means that soul that stimulates and directs a person to do what is good for him as a human being, find a pleasure as a human being, exist as a human being, not to exist on a godly plane, not to exist for godliness. So nefesh simply means soul. Habahamis means the animal-like. Halikis means godly.
Thank you.
Sure.
A lot to process.
Yes. Okay.
It is a lot to process.
Okay.
All right, everyone.
Next week in Mias Hashem, there'll be more to process.
There's another question. Is there a question?
Rabbi, real quick, I
Yeah.
have the Tanya books, and I went through it one time already. What page are you on? Can you tell me what page you're on the books, or
Now,
what chapter are you on?
what? But I'm on chapter 1. When you say the book, are you speaking about just there's many books now on Tanya. So what do you?
Yeah, I believe it was written by Quixote, or Quixote.
Right.
It's a 5-volume book in English. It's in English. It has the Hebrew, and it
Lessons
also
in
has the
Tanya?
English.
Lessons in Tanya.
Lessons in Tanya, correct.
First of all, you know that was written by, the original is written by his father and translated by his brothers. This is the third brother.
Right.
Do we have it here?
Ah,
Do we have it? Lessons in Tanya. Chelik 1. And there's different versions than this also. There's the new version. Okay, we are now in the first chapter of Likutei Amarim.
Likutei Amarim. Okay.
Okay, and in the text we finished the first side and the second side, but in the Tanya by you is going to be probably a few pages later.
Okay. Okay, I know we go by dates. They have some dates on the side of the page. I'll find it. I'll go back to the video and I'll find it. So this way I can just start reviewing it again.
Okay,
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
all right. It'll take a few weeks till we get to that. All right, take care, everybody. Be well. Stay safe.
Look to see who it's written by.
Thank
The names will
you.
seem familiar. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.